Hello and welcome back to Tokyo PM. Now, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell my story of how I became a product manager here in Tokyo with now 3 years of experience. Now, let's take it back a little bit to before I went to university. So, I grew up in Hong Kong, which I find to be an incredible, vibrant city. It has changed now and it's continuing to change, but at least the years that I grew up there from it still being a British colony to the financial hub and the incredible economic explosion that it had to where it is now was an incredible city to grow up in. But I'm also half Japanese. And so I wanted the opportunity to try live in Japan, see what it's like, learn a little bit of Japanese, and eventually get a job and settle down here in Japan. My Japanese is not very good. So I found that the Japanese government did a program to invite foreign students to come to Japan and get their degrees in a full 4 year bachelor's undergraduate. And this was an incredible opportunity for me to come to Japan and live in this country, learn a little bit more about the culture, and improve my Japanese, albeit it's still quite bad. Now, it was an incredible time. I went to Doshisha University in Kyoto, a beautiful city, a beautiful university, and it's quite small, which gives it its charm. It's really nice to be in a city where you can walk everywhere, cycle everywhere, and also the faculty is great. We had, I think, 400 students over the 4 years. And the nice thing is then you actually get to know everyone, connect with people in a way that you might not be able to in a big university. However, Japan has a very strange job seeking system, and it's called the Shukatsu. Now, Shukatsu is a way for Japanese candidates to already have a job before they leave university. And I think Japan has one of the highest job acceptance rate at point of graduation in the world because we have this system. So it's an incredible system that every year you have companies that will open, let's say, 200 slots, and they run you through this rigorous application system in which they will fill these 200 slots. The great thing there is you often have these companies that we will take new grads, we will take those who've just finished their university degree and give them the opportunity to get professional and unemployment. But there's two catches, or three if you're a foreign student. The first one is it's really difficult. It's really difficult to join a company in this way because there's a limit to how many slots there are, and you're competing basically with everyone else in Japan. And if you obviously aren't very good at the testing procedure, it's quite a challenge. Some companies, they only have interviews. And so you go, you interview, you have the opportunity to chat with the recruiter, chat with the HR manager, and they will get an understanding or an idea of who you are, what your background is, and whether you'd be a good fit at that company. Other companies, they do these tests, and these tests are very rigorous, very challenging tests. And this is done not to reflect what your sort of role will be, but it's simply a way to try whittle down the field to get to what they hope to be the best candidates for the company. The second catch is it's you're not hired for a role. You're not hired for your interests. You're not hired for something that you want to do. If you get into one of these companies, you're basically metaphorically put into a big bingo slot machine and you're wheeled around, and wherever you drop, that's where you go. So oftentimes it depends on what the company is doing that year. When I joined at Rakuten Mobile, I did not go through this system. I'll explain more later. But the time I joined, you did have a very large cohort of students who then became new grads in this system, and they all went into Rakuten Mobile because this is where Rakuten was trying to expand their business operations. And this system can be really challenging to be involved in. First, if you don't have Japanese ability, it is nigh impossible because everything is done in Japanese. You also need to be actively doing this from your third year of university. Don't wait until you graduate, but you want to be reaching out to companies, trying to start interviewing in your third year so that you can even get your job offer in your fourth year before you graduate, which is challenging if you're not taught, this is where you go, this is how you do these kind of applications. I will admit, at my university, the career center, they tried their best, but I think foreign students still present a little bit of a challenge on trying to get a job here in the country, which honestly is a shame because you have a lot of students that are coming to Japan, they want to learn, and they then end up leaving because they don't have the opportunity to find a job because they can't engage with this system. And so this is where my experience comes in. I went to job fairs. I had the opportunity to talk to different companies. One interesting side route that I did not take, but some people do take to the Shukatsu system, is there is a Boston fair that is done every year. One of these normal job fairs, but it's hosted in the US in Boston. And it's an opportunity for Japanese companies to try hire people and bring them to Japan. Now, this is seen to be kind of a shortcut because often people will get jobs on the spot. And it's also seen to be a little bit easier. But this is done a little bit later into the hiring year. And so if you're opting for the opportunity to go to this Boston job fair, you're kind of putting all of your eggs in one basket. Now, I have some friends who they did go to this job fair. And because of that, they got a job on the spot and they were like, great, good to go. Once I'm back in Japan, I have a career ahead of me. But I find this system really strange because they don't care what you're going to be doing. They don't care what your university was, what you want to do. You basically become a blank slate candidate that they can then put wherever you want. And that is in exchange for stability. That is in exchange for a company that will pay for your health insurance and, of course, your salary. And then you get the opportunity to be a full-time hire, which in Japan is slowly going down. The opportunities for full-time hire, I think, is now 60% of the country. So there's 40% that are working part-time, which is quite a lot. And it varies based on demographic, but it is an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door with these companies by going through the Shukatsu system. My personal recommendation is based on my story. And what happened was I was in university and I knew my Japanese is not good enough to get a job. So what am I going to do? And luckily, my mom lives here in Tokyo. And so I moved from Kyoto to Tokyo because I didn't have a job. I didn't have the means to pay rent. And so I was thinking, okay, how do I get a job? I'm here in the city. What do I do? So I went to job fairs. I had the opportunity to submit my resumes. But it kind of struck me as weird that at job fairs, it's kind of like the company selling themselves to you, but then gives you no avenue to apply rather than put your copy of your CV into a box. Like they're there selling themselves to you and they don't set up the means for you to then connect with them. Some companies and some fairs, they do have systems where you can register early and try to get one-on-one interviews, but this is often done at the company's behest. The company will say, hey, we're at this job fair, come interview with us. So while you're there, if you didn't do this in advance and if you don't have that opportunity set up previously, you actually don't have the opportunity to talk to these companies at the job fair, which I find kind of defeats the purpose of the job fair. The second opportunity, honestly, is get out and tell people what you're doing. So I went to meetups, I went to any social gatherings that I thought would be interesting. And people would ask, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? And I would share, honestly, I don't have a job. I'm unemployed, but I'm currently looking for something in this field. And that helped to an extent. So, for example, with my mom, she helped talk to some of her previous colleagues or existing colleagues. And so I landed an internship at Reuters, which is a massive news organization that also competes with Bloomberg in terms of providing business analytics. And I had the opportunity to be a video journalist for 2-3 months. I didn't know anything about video journalism. And admittedly, my Japanese was not good enough to succeed in that role. But it's also such an incredible, exciting challenge. And so let's say I was in someone else's shoes and someone wanted to do that. That would be a really good way to get into it. Just ask around, ask what are people doing. Yes, I will admit this is reliant on having someone who knows the city a little bit or already has a community that they can reach out to. if you don't have one that exists already, then it's kind of on you to go make one. Now, for me, that Reuters thing didn't pan out. And instead, I tried to apply to a company doing programming in Kamakura. I think I've shared on the separate video before. I'm not a programmer. I'm not very good at it. I tried doing Go. I think it's an incredible program for those who want to code, but I don't code. And so I was applying for the sake of getting a job, but ultimately that didn't go through because I wasn't good enough at programming, which is fine because it's something I'm really interested in anyways. But I had the opportunity to continue, being honest, telling people what I'm doing, and also try to share. Like my recommendation, if you're in the city and networking can feel kind of gross, when you're at an event and you're thinking, okay, I need a job. You're thinking, I'm vulnerable, I have nothing to give, but I need a job and I want someone to see me as worthy, see me as someone worth taking a chance on. I would kind of flip it on its head and try be someone who gives. So if you're giving, it doesn't need to be much. Maybe it's not a lot, but if you ask someone, what are they not working on, but what are they trying to achieve? How can you help, however small? And then you create a community of giving. And by giving to the people around you, then people go, oh, that person gives. And so when they need something, I will then have the opportunity to give. But that feels a lot more wholesome and a lot more clean than sort of clinical networking might be. Because if you feel like you're networking when you're trying to find a job and you're out there and you're saying, hey, you know, I need a job, but I don't know what I can give. And so you kind of feel less valuable yourself, which is not fair because you're valuable as you are. Personally, I run Product Tank events every month, and it's been an incredible opportunity to connect with those who are in the same industry that I'm in, and that's something that I'm interested in pursuing. And so it is my efforts to coordinate this with together with the team here at Product Tank that gives me the opportunity to say, come join us, come to this event, let's have a great time, and also just get to know each other. If anyone has anything that they need, how can we help and how can we build on that? And that's been an incredible opportunity to meet people here. And yes, some of our community members have gotten jobs from other community members, and that's great. And that's part of the experience, but that's not the core of what we're doing. And I think that's how you network in a way that doesn't feel like you're making yourself lesser than you are, because it's difficult to find those opportunities. But I think if you put yourself out there, this is exactly what I did. You tell people, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm looking for. But you find ways to help. You find ways to say, hey, what's the problem that you're having? How can I help? It might not be something that you're interested in the first place. Like, let's say someone's trying to grow their social media. And you're like, okay, well, I can take your YouTube video and transcribe it for you into a blog. And then I can break that blog down into tweets and I can also tweet that for you. You know, that's something that's helping that person who can then come back to you and say, hey, actually, that was really cool. Do you mind doing it for so and so, so and so, so and so? And then from there, you're getting this opportunity to connect with people. And so find something that you can give. And I'm sure based on your experience, you have something, anything that you can get. And if you start from there, you'll find that people are happy to give back to you when you need it the most. So that's what I did. That's how I ended up with my first job. Actually, I started as an intern. So I was going through the interviews and they were not really sure with having me in the team, which is fair because I didn't have any professional experience and I didn't go through the Shukatsu system. So I negotiated with them and said, hey, look, I'm going to make this easy. It doesn't need to be a difficult choice, or it doesn't need to be a strong commitment, because once you're hired as a full-time in Japan, it's very tough to fire you just from a legal framework, like labor law protections and things like that. So what I told them when I was being interviewed, I really love this opportunity. Let me start as an intern. I'll start part-time. I'll start just learning. And in 6 months, let's have a review. In 6 months, you tell me if the work that I did is good enough and if then I can join. And so finding these internships, I think, is one of the best opportunities you can have. Yes, if finances admittedly are tough, then you might need to do a second job just to cover your time while you're doing an internship. But it's really a good way to get your foot in the door and try to pursue something that you want to do. From there, I had the opportunity to shift from my internship, which was in UX design, to product management. And now I'm here today. If you have any questions when it comes to trying to get a job or trying to meet members of the community, like I said, I'm co-organizer for Product Tank events here in Tokyo. So please do join us. And at the same time, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So feel free to message me or comment, and I'll look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.